Hey guys, Mike here, the Detroit board with a look at the Samsung Galaxy Tab S in two colors. This is the 8.4 inch. I'll also be taking a look at the 10.5 inch models. These are their flagship tablets here to take on things like the iPad mini with Retina display and the iPad Air. They're also priced the same. So the 8.4 inch retails for $399 at the top end. That gets you 16 gig Wi-Fi. There's also a 32 gig version, and there's an LTE version of these tablets. The LTE version actually has a different chipset. Those are using the Snapdragon processors. These are using the Exynos processors. Now, the big story with the Tab S is that it's smaller, thinner, more compact, and sporting a Super AMOLED display, which is the first Samsung tablet since the Tab 7.7 to feature an AMOLED display. There's a lot of benefits to that technology, and I'm pretty excited to get my hands on it because when I did review the Tab 7.7 many years ago now, I was really impressed by that display, so I'm pretty excited to get my hands on these. Now, in terms of specs, we have Samsung's Exynos processor, which is an Octa-Core processor, which combines two quad cores. One's clocked at 1.9, the other is clocked at 1.3. The 1.9 is a Cortex A15, the 1.3 is a Cortex A7. We have 3 gigs of RAM. We also have the option to expand storage up to 128 gigs thanks to a micro SD card slot. We have an IR LED blaster, which works with the Watch on remote control app. We have an 8 megapixel autofocusing camera, good for 1080p video, and then we have a 2.1 megapixel front-facing camera. We also have our Fingerprint Scanner, which is lifted from the Galaxy S5 series, so this is Samsung's first tablet to feature that technology. We also have a 4900 milliamp hour battery that's slightly larger than the Tab Pro, which was 4800, so slightly larger battery despite having a thinner, lighter body. Now, in terms of our 8.4 inch display, it's actually got the same specs of the Tab Pro 8.4 inch. So that's a WQXVGA display, 2560 by 1600. That's good for 359 pixels per inch. That's better than the 326 ppi on the iPad mini with Retina display. Now, as I mentioned, we have two colors to take a look at. We have white and bronze. Bronze is kind of a brownish color. You can see that both tablets actually have gold trim instead of silver trim. That is the only trim option you get with these tablets. So if you don't like gold, well, I think you're out of luck here. So let's go ahead and take a look to see what these colors look like. First thing I want to do is slice open our packaging here. So we're just going to do both at the same time. So we're going to start with the white model here, flip it over, slide it out. Oh, the packaging is a bit different this time. You can see instead of the clear plastic, we have this little piece of paper or styrofoam. Let's go ahead and lift it up here. Galaxy Tab S, nice little envelope here. So let's go ahead and pull this open. Slides right out. Very nice looking. Looks very much like a blown up Galaxy S5 complete with that stippled pattern on the back. You can see that we have these little fasteners for a cover accessory, which Samsung also sells. All right, so let's get to the black model so we can start comparing them here. Again, flip it over, slide it out. So there we go. Again, same stippled pattern, but this time it's got a bronzy color. It's more of a metallic look than the black you would see on the Galaxy S5. I actually really like that look. It's kind of neat. Now, once again, we also have all this plastic along the side. In fact, you can see it actually started unraveling as soon as I took it out here. Now, we also have a little plastic covering our camera lens right here. Now, the accessories are the same in both packages. So we have a white micro USB 2.0 cable and a standard Samsung travel adapter. We also have our paperwork, which includes health, safety, and warranty guide. We probably have a quick start guide in here somewhere. This must be it. There we go. If we open this up, we should see some instructions on how to boot it up, the features, that sort of thing. And of course, we're going to go through that in this video. We also have software upgrade instructions, which are pretty basic. So again, just to show you, both packages basically the same. All right, so there we have our bronze and titanium white model. Really sharp looking, especially with these very small compact bezels. If you compare this to the Tab Pro, again, you can see that they have the same screen size, but much smaller bezels all around. It just looks a lot slicker. It's also quite a bit thinner than the Tab Pro. You can see that some things have changed in terms of the layout of the sensors and the camera as well, but otherwise very similar. So on the back, we have an 8 megapixel autofocusing camera, good for 1080p HD video. We also have an LED flash just below that, pretty much the same specs as the Tab Pro line. Now on the left-hand side, we have our volume rocker and our sleep-wake power on and off button in the same location you would typically see it on a Samsung tablet. In fact, it's in the same location on the Tab Pro 8.4. You can see just how much thinner these tablets are compared to the Tab Pro line. fact, if we scroll down here, you can see that we have our IR blaster in landscape orientation, even that is shrunken down a bit. Then we have a micro SD card slot right here, which is in a different location on the Tab Pro. Now I think you can tell on the camera that the gold color on the white tablet is a little lighter than the gold color on the bronze tablet. If you look at the top of the tablet in portrait orientation, you can see that there has been a rearrangement here. So you can see the Tab S now has the stereo speakers sort of in a landscape orientation configuration as opposed to the portrait orientation on the Tab Pro. Now on the left-hand side, you can see that the Tab Pro put the SD card slot, and you can see that nothing is going on with the Tab S on the left-hand side. Now on the bottom, you have the other stereo speaker, the headphone jack, and the micro USB port. You can see here with the Tab Pro S, you had your stereo speakers, which meant you really only had stereo in portrait orientation instead of landscape orientation, and of course you had your micro USB charging port. Now if you look at the Android keys, you can see they're basically the same. We have our recent apps, back button, and our home button, but there's a big difference here with that home button. This has a fingerprint scanner, so again, that's new with Samsung's tablets. You can also see that that gold trim is also around that home button as opposed to the silver on the Tab Pro. Now toward the top, you'll find a 2.1 megapixel front-facing camera along with an ambient light sensor. Now, if you got a cellular version, one with GSM voice, you'd actually get an earpiece. So in theory, you could use this as a cell phone. Now again, toward the back, you have this bronze metallic color. It's not a brown color, it's kind of a grayish color. It looks really sharp. It looks more metallic than black or brown. Pretty nice color. And you also have that white color, which we're familiar with the Galaxy S5, which kind of has a pearlescent or opalescent effect. Now, if you look at the back of the Pro versus the S, you can see that we have our camera module, which sticks out quite a bit more than it does on the Tab Pro. That's thanks to the thinness here. You can see that the materials used are also quite different. This has that stitched pattern we're familiar with from the Note series. You can see the stitch pattern with that kind of full leather grain on the back versus this stippled kind of modern glam look, as Samsung calls it, from the Galaxy S5. Now on the back, again, you have these physical fasteners for the cover accessory, which Samsung sells separately. Of course, they're always present. Personally, I'd prefer if they did not include these. Now, if you look toward the bottom, you can see we have this bump out for all the ports on the bottom. And if you look closely, you'll see that we have our capacity listed right here, 16 gig, 16 gig. All right, I'm just going to boot these up for the first time, just tapping and holding the power button on the right-hand side, and it's actually pressing the button up here as well. So as you can see down here, we have our backlit Android controls, which both the Tab Pro and the Tab S have, but the Tab 4 does not. Alrighty, so let's go and take a look at the user interface. And we have a familiar wallpaper, but we have a new unlock effect. It's more like a 3D wallpaper effect. So when you swipe on the screen, you can see it kind of lights up the shards. So let's go ahead and take a look at the user interface, starting with the drop-down shade, which is pretty familiar territory here. So you have your brightness slider, your volume slider. You can tap here to get to more volume controls. You can tap here to launch into your apps. You can swipe down here again to get to your quick settings toggles, which have a lot of familiar features here, including adaptive display, which is kind of a new feature. Not really a new feature, but they're touting it with this tablet. So if you tap and hold on this, we'll take you to that adaptive display mode, which you can cycle through. So we have adaptive display, but you have other options such as AMOLED Cinema, AMOLED Photo, and Basic. So you can select which one you want, but you have to uncheck adaptive display. And as you can see here, as soon as you turn off adaptive display, and the display gets a little less vibrant. Adaptive display will basically adapt the display to whatever context you're in. So for example, if you're looking at photos, you're using the camera, browsing the internet, playing video, or looking or reading a Google Play book. So all of this will automatically adapt to the content as well as the ambient lighting conditions. Now if you swipe down here again, you also have ultra power saving mode, which we're familiar with from the Galaxy S5. So if you activate ultra power saving mode, it basically dials back the screen to a grayscale, closes apps, basically runs this into limp home mode. So it dials back connectivity, it dials back app performance, that sort of thing, to give you pretty impressive battery life. So as you can see here, with 100% battery life, we have about 49.6 days of standby time with this tablet. Now we also have screen mirroring. Of course, you can wirelessly broadcast the display of your tablet to a compatible device, such as a Samsung Smart TV. Now we also have a toolbox utility, which is this sort of little widget that pops up over the top of your screen so you can move it around. It stays pretty minimized so it doesn't get in the way, but when you need access to it, you just tap on it. It allows you to access certain apps. So for example, if you want to launch your camera really quickly, there you go. Now you can move this around or take it up to remove, or you can go up here to edit and manage what apps appear here. So for example, personally, I prefer Chrome, but I can't add it until I remove one of the other apps. So for example, let's go ahead and remove the standard browser. Go with Chrome here. Click Done. Now if I tap on it, I can launch into Chrome. Now you have additional quick toggles by going up here. So as you can see here, we have Smart Stay technology, which will allow the camera to monitor for the presence of your eyes and prevent the display from going to sleep. You also have Smart Pause, which will pause video playback if you avert your eyes. So this works with any video app, such as YouTube or the included video app. We also have blocking mode. So if you want to change your blocking mode settings, just go right here. This allows you to, for example, set certain times of day, turn off notifications or turn off alarms. And I can also increase touch sensitivity. So this will allow you to use this tablet with gloved hands. This is familiar again to Samsung smartphones. Now the home screen layout is very similar to the Galaxy Tab Pro, but there are a few changes here. So for example, you have your file manager right here. So that's always there on the home screen. This allows you to access your files directly instead of going to apps and that sort of thing. Of course, you also have your app drawer. Now you can pinch in and out to see your available home screens here. So you can select your wallpapers, you can select your widgets, you can add new home screens or remove them if you want. Now like the Galaxy Tab Pro, if we swipe to the right, we get to our magazine UX, which consists of two pages here. So the first page includes our calendar, our office suite, which is Handcom Office. So this will allow us to see our office-based documents like Excel, Word, or PowerPoint type documents here. We also have our inbox, which is all of our email. Now we have something called Quick Briefing here, which allows us to customize this specific tile for information. So for example, we can quickly add our bookmarks, we can see our calendar events, see our stock listings, we can quickly access SideSync for our mobile device, such as my GS5 Prime. This is a feature I'll demonstrate a bit later. And then we can add alarms. We also have Paper Garden for magazine subscriptions. We have Here and Now for app discovery based on location. And then we have the Samsung Watch On app. So we can use that IR blaster on the side of the device to remotely control our AV equipment. Now, as you can see here in landscape orientation, the layout changes just a little bit here, but this is highly customizable. So all you have to do is tap and hold on any one of these tiles, and you can remove them like that if you prefer. You can also change the layout, which will basically cycle the arrangement of the tiles, and you can add additional widgets. So you can add additional categories, which will feed different news items depending on the category, or you can add one of these apps. So for example, if you want your YouTube feed to appear as a widget here, you can add that as well. You can also add additional tiles here, so you can add up to 5 tiles, and if you want, you can remove them just by tapping and holding on them, taking them up to remove. Now let's go ahead and add YouTube here. So that's added to this tile here. All I have to do is log in, but you can see I have other space to use up here. So again, tap and hold here, and I can add additional widgets such as Twitter, Google Plus, and that sort of thing. And I can also add additional story items. So for example, if I want, let's see, travel. So that'll add a travel widget here. So if I tap on that, I can also edit exactly what feeds into this widget. So I can see the sources that are available to me, such as the Millennial Travel Journal, Overland Journal, Photopedia magazine, that sort of thing here. Now we also have multi-window mode, which you can swipe to the right to activate. So this gets you to your multi-window tray. You can also tap and hold the back button to activate the feature, but if you don't want it active, basically you go up to your quick settings toggles up here and disable it. So this will no longer accidentally appear when you tap and hold the back button or swipe in from the right. So with multi-window, I can open up 2 windows at one time. So for example, I can bring up Chrome here. So this will launch Chrome, and if I want to drag and drop something else like YouTube here, there we go. So now I have a side-by-side viewer, so I can watch video in one side of the window and browse the web on the other side. So I get a little keypad here, a floating keypad. So I can dial in the website here, I can click play, I can go to maximize, I can resize the window here, like so, pause the video playback here, and scroll through it. As you can see, it's almost real time, but of course it does lag a bit as it resizes here. Now as you can see here, when I tap on each window, it's outlined in blue. When I tap that little icon in the center, this gives me controls for that specific window. So for example, as you can see here, I have a multitask option here. This allows me to open up more than one window within each window. Let me show you exactly what I mean here. So if I swipe in from the right edge again, I can drag and drop Gmail over that window, and I can drag and drop my files. So now I have 3 windows kind of suspended in the background on this side of the window. So now if I go to recent apps, you can see all 3 of them right here, and I can jump to them or close them out, as you can see here, with that little X icon in the upper right. Now this also means when I have one of these windows highlighted, if I click the back button, it'll actually go back for me. Same with YouTube over here. You also get additional controls here. So for example, you can close this window, you can maximize it. You can copy one item from this window and apply it to the other window. You can swap the windows. and that sort of thing. So let's go ahead and close it. Now, if you ever navigate away from this page, you can actually jump right back to it just by going to one of the apps that were in side-by-side viewer, like so. So YouTube also brings up Chrome, or Gmail in this case. Now you can also customize this, so you can add additional apps to this panel here. So if you go to Edit, you can drag and drop, for example, play music. Actually, go ahead and drag and drop it here. And you can also remove them if you want, if you don't want them to appear here. Now, this also allows you to create custom recipes. So for example, if you like to have Gmail and YouTube open at the same time often, you can go to that editor here, go to create, and it creates that custom recipe. You can see it's been added to your tray here. So now you can just simply tap that and it'll launch both windows side by side. Now, like all Samsung devices, these Android keys have multi-uses. For example, you can tap and hold the home button to get to Google Now. But if you want Samsung's voice assistant, all you have to do is double tap the home button. Takes you to S Voice. Now, you also have your recent apps tray here, as you can see here, which is pretty standard stuff. You can close them all, you can swipe them out of the way to close them, or you can go to your task manager to close apps, that sort of thing. But if you tap and hold this will actually get you to your options button. So this is similar to the menu button in an app. So for example, if I go to Chrome here, I can either go up here to access menu, or I can tap and hold this button here to get to it. Now, familiar to the Galaxy S5 is S-Finder and Quick Connect. Now, S-Finder is just the device search engine. So this allows you to search everything by type of content, by date, time, that sort of thing. Now, the Tab S introduces a new feature on the lock screen, and that's these lock screen cards, which display some information from apps in the tablet. So for example, you see email, you see our weather widget, that sort of thing. So if you want to access any one of these, all you have to do is tap on it, swipe to unlock. Takes you right to that app, so you can see our weather conditions. Now, you can turn this feature off or manage it under settings. You have to go to settings. We're going to look for device and lock screen. Under lock screen, we'll find lock screen card. If you tap on that, you can see we have several cards we can toggle on and off. So if you don't want any of them, just toggle them all off. So you can see things like weather, today's schedule, today's birthdays, which is using your contacts, news, social, and email. Now, within the app drawer, we'll find the standard array of Samsung, Google, and some third-party apps. So for example, you'll see two hand-come office apps. So you'll find the standard viewer, which allows us to view Word, Excel, and PowerPoint documents. You'll also find Handcom Office, which allows us to download applications that allow us to create and edit documents, such as Excel documents, Word, PowerPoint, and that sort of thing. Now we'll find third-party apps like Flipboard and Evernote, as well as Business Week and New York Times, which are subscription-based, but you do get a trial period if you want to view it. Netflix comes pre-installed. You also find Paper Garden, which again is integrated with the My Magazine viewer. And then we have other standard Samsung apps. We have My Files, which again is integrated into the home screen now. So this is a really nice file browser that Samsung has built out. We also have Remote PC, which allows us to remotely control the screen of a PC. You just have to install some software. We also have Cisco's WebEx for group meetings. This is particularly popular in enterprise settings. Then we have things like Watch On, the remote control app. We have Samsung's dedicated app store and that sort of thing. Now we also have Milk, which is Samsung's music streaming app. This allows us to create our own stations and play back our own music. It's kind of similar to other streaming services like Spotify or Pandora. Now the Tab S comes pre-installed with SideSync 3.0, and you can also install this on your Galaxy phone if it's not already installed. So basically it's using Wi-Fi Direct to communicate between both devices. So you do have to launch the app on both devices in order for this to work. And basically what will happen here is that you can connect to your phone and virtualize the display on your tablet. So we just have to agree to it. So there we go. We actually have this little window here of the phone's display, which you can interact with just like you would on the phone itself. You can swipe down to get to your notification panel. You can tap on one of the items to launch the app. And again, this is happening on the phone and just being broadcasted to your tab wirelessly. Now, if you go to the phone, you can see that it does shut down the virtualizer on the tablet, but you can switch it back like so. So you can't use both devices at the same time in this mode. Now, you can move this window around or you can minimize it like so, and this will basically give you this little floating icon which stays out of the way, and you can jump to it when you need it. Now you can go to full screen mode, and as you can see up here, you get your Android controls for home, back, and recent apps as well as menu. You can jump to a web browser on your tablet if you tap this icon here, and it will minimize the app for you like that, so you can continue browsing on your tablet and jump back to your phone here. Let's go to maximize again. You can change the orientation of the display, and then you can do a screen grab of the phone's display. and then you can go to full screen or minimize. Now, as you can see here, this window floats in the background, so you can continue doing other things while this window is here. You can also resize it if you prefer. And you can see there is some latency, and the display isn't as sharp on the tablet as it is on the phone itself. So the resolution isn't exactly duplicated here, but it is scaled properly for speed and performance. Now with SideSync 3.0, you can answer phone calls using the tablet. So when you're receiving a phone call, you either have the option to answer it on the phone or the tablet. If you answer it on the tablet, it uses the internal microphone and speakers, but your phone is doing all the work, so it's actually a bridge between the two devices. Now within the app drawer, we can manage all of our apps here. So for example, if we tap and hold here, we can drag and drop it to one of our home screens. We can take it down here to one of these thumbnails to select the home screen we want or create a new home screen. You can also swipe up here to create a folder, go to app info, disable the app, or just cancel the entire process here. But also in the app drawer, you can go up here to edit to create folders. Now it's a little different than it was with the Tab Pro. So for example, if we want to create a folder here with Google Apps, just going to drag and drop this up here to create a folder. So now it's going to allow me to name this folder. I'm just going to say Google. And now I can add additional apps. So I can add all of the Google apps. Well, I'm just going to add a few of them right now. Click done here. So now it's created a separate page just for foldered items. That's different with the Tab Pro, which would place the folder with the rest of the items. So now I have a folder full of items. In fact, if I want to add this to the home screen, I can do so like this. Now you can uninstall or disable some of these apps. So for example, if you go up here to menu, you have uninstall or disable apps. When you click this, you get several icons that appear next to the apps that are eligible for this action. So for example, you can disable the calculator, you can't uninstall it. Same with Paper Garden. Now some apps you can uninstall, such as this screensaver here. So I can go up here and I can uninstall this if I prefer. Now with apps you can't uninstall or disable or whatever, you can also just hide them. So you can go ahead and hide Paper Garden, click done. The app disappears. If you want to see it again, you can go to Show Hidden Applications. Now, Galaxy Essentials is where you can download other Samsung apps that did not come pre-installed with your device. So instead of just loading it full of apps, you have quick access to Samsung supported apps that work with your tablet. Next thing to take a look at is the Fingerprint Scanner. So again, this is a new feature for Samsung's tablets. This is available under Device, under Fingerprints, under Personalization and Fingerprint Scanner. You can see up here we have Fingerprint Manager. So I've already registered one finger here. I just have to swipe to unlock it. There we go. So I can go up here to add additional fingers. Let's click OK. And I'm going to go ahead and swipe my thumb here. So all I have to do is swipe across lengthwise on my thumb and continue doing this until it has successfully trained your thumb. So let's go ahead and swipe a finger that's not trained. As you can see here, it's telling me to swipe over the center. Let's try again. So again, it's not finding it. So if I swipe my index finger, which is trained, it's recognized and it works pretty well. Now let's explore private mode. So if you enable private mode, this basically allows us to log in using any feature we want, in this case the fingerprint scanner. So this will allow us to hide certain files such as photographs, documents, movies, that sort of thing. And only certain apps support this, such as the Gallery app here. So let's go to the Gallery app. And within the Gallery app, I have some photos that I took with this device, so I can tap on it. And if I want to hide this photo from view from other users, all I have to do is go up to the options up here, scroll down here and move to private. So now it's moved to private. This basically means that if I go back, you can see that there's a little private icon in the upper left corner here. You can see it when I'm also looking at the photograph. So this means that if I disable private mode now, that photograph will be hidden. Let's click OK here. Now if I go to the gallery now, you can see that I now have only 3 photos because the first one is hidden. And if I want to access it again, I have to enable private mode, swipe, and as you can see here, it's reappeared. Now let me just quickly show you the settings panel. So again, we have connections, device, general, and applications. And again, you can also search to find whatever you want under the settings panel, which is again, very useful. Now under connections, you have Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, airplane mode, data usage, location. You can see what apps are using your location. You can see more networks for setting up a VPN. You can see nearby devices. You can enable this feature. You'll see them here. You also have printing options. You can see the available printers. You also have your screen mirroring options, which you can also quickly access from the drop-down shade. You have have your device settings. So you have sounds, you have lots of sound options. You can turn off a lot of the touch sounds that can be a little annoying with Samsung tablets. You have your display settings for brightness, smart state technology, screen timeout settings, your screen mode. If you go to screen mode, this changes your adapt display, or you can select one of these other display options. You can also adjust your unlock settings from swipe, pattern, fingerprint, pin, password, or none. You have your multi-window mode, which you can toggle on and off. You have your notification panel settings, so you can modify what appears under your notification panel. So for example, you can drag other icons up here. You have your motion. So we have mute pause. So basically when you place your hand over the display while playing video or audio, it will pause playback or mute the audio. You also have palm swipe to capture a screen grab. So again, you just swipe on the screen to grab a screen grab. And again, you can see it's actually brought up the multi-window mode. So again, that's why you may want to disable it under here quickly under this circumstance here. So let's try this again. There we go. We also have accessibility options. We have our blocking mode settings again. User, so we do have multi-user mode, so you can add additional users here. We also have private mode, which is again familiar from the GS5, and then we have our fingerprint scanner. Under general, we have our accounts, so we can add additional accounts here, such as email accounts, Dropbox, Evernote, Google accounts, Twitter, and WebEx accounts. Cloud, so you can add additional cloud storage options. So for example, you have Dropbox and Samsung's cloud storage. We have backup and reset, language and input, date and time, accessories, battery, so you can see all of our battery information here. So if you select here, you can see entire graph, your screen on time, power and saving modes. Now under power saving, we have two options. We have standard power saving mode, so you have to enable this. This gives us granular control over certain performance restrictions. So for example, under restricted performance, if we enable this, we can dial back CPU performance, screen output, turn off the key lights, or turn off GPS, so you can manually adjust those if you prefer. And you can also enable grayscale mode. So if you enable grayscale mode, let's go back here, you can see it just dials back performance by going to grayscale. Again, very similar to ultra power saving mode. Now under storage, you can see that we only have about half of the 16 gigs that come included with the device available to the user. So 16 gigs isn't a lot, but of course you have that SD card slot. We also have about device, so we can see software update status, legal information, the device name, that sort of thing. Now under applications, we have our application manager, so we can see what's on the SD card, what's downloaded, what's running, and that sort of thing. You can also see our contacts application, so we can manage that here. We see our default applications, our email applications, so we can see our email settings. We also have our gallery applications for our photos. And so we can see what's syncing to our gallery. So you can see Google syncing right now. We have our internet settings. This is the browser. And then we have calendar settings as well. So we can see which accounts are plugging into our calendar. And then we have S-Voice settings. Now let's take a look at the camera app, which is pretty familiar territory for any Samsung device. This is again 8 megapixels, 6 megapixels in 16:9, and 8 in 4:3. So you can snap a photograph. You can tap anywhere on the scene to change exposure and focus. You can pinch in and out to crop the scene. You can record video as well. So as you can see here, I'm in stabilization mode, which actually crops the image while recording video. So this is just software stabilization, so you can see there's a little lag there when it's doing that. You can shoot photographs, and you can pause it, and you can stop it. Now, unlike the 8.4 Tab Pro, the Tab S has the same keyboard from the larger tablets, which is this sort of dimensional style keyboard. You can see it kind of has a 3D look to it. It also sounds like a traditional clicky keyboard. So for example, if I start typing, so anyway, you see, you get the idea here. You have your number row up top. You have your options down here. Now, if you tap and hold this, you get to other options. So we can select our different keyboard sizes. We have our floating keyboard. We also have our split keyboard, which is a little more useful on a larger tablet, but now you have a thumb typable keyboard. This works in either landscape or portrait orientation. As you can see here, you can also reposition it. Again, you also have text input, so you can use handwriting recognition in this case. For text input, in this case, you can use your finger. And of course, we have voice input. This is a test of the voice keyboard, period. Now, there's no denying the fact that the Super AMOLED display is a standout feature here and possibly the reason to buy it. You get really deep blacks, very bright and vivid colors, and in this case, they're pretty accurate. Certainly much better than Super AMOLED displays in the past. You also get really bright and clear whites that seem a little more accurate than those on the Galaxy Tab Pro 8.4. Now, the Tab Pro 8.4 has an LCD display, and that's very evident, especially when watching movies. You can see there's a lot of off-axis distortion, and the blacks definitely aren't as clear as they are on the Super AMOLED display. So movie watching on this tablet is superb. Now you combine that with the stereo speakers and you get really impressive performance in terms of media consumption. Now the thing to keep in mind with these stereo speakers is that if you're holding it in landscape orientation and you're using the eye or blaster direction to indicate which is the proper way of holding it, you can see that these speakers are then in your palm as opposed to toward the top here. So you can of course just rotate the tablet in this direction and the speakers will not be blocked by your palms, but I think a lot of people will instinctively place it up here where the volume rockers are and that sort of thing. So they are a little more easily muffled, but not too bad. Now in terms of our Geekbench 3 scores, you can see both tablets are fairly evenly matched, but the Tab S does beat it, and that's helped by the fact that we have 3 gigs of RAM versus just 2 gigs on the Tab Pro. So again, the better performer with the Tab S. Now I think it's really great to have these ultra thin bezels with this really thin design, but the only drawback I find here is that with such a small bezel, it's pretty hard to find a grip without accidentally hitting the off-screen Android keys, especially if you're watching a movie. I mean, if you go and grip your tablet or move it around, it's pretty easy to accidentally just brush against these capacitive controls. So it's pretty easy to activate the back button or the recent apps button. So if you're watching a movie, it's pretty easy to accidentally interrupt it. So in conclusion, there's a lot to like about the Tab S with that beautiful Super AMOLED display, which is really high resolution, deep blacks, vivid colors that is very accurate. We also have those stereo speakers. So the combination of that beautiful, deep, rich display with stereo speakers makes this the best media consumption tablet you can buy right now, easily. We also have a really thin, lightweight form factor with a very compact bezel space, so it's mostly all screen. We also have expandable storage, a fairly decent 8 megapixel camera on the back with software stabilization and a lot of other features, and then all the hardware specs you would expect with vibration motor for haptic feedback as well as notifications. You also have GPS and that stuff all built in, all at the same price of an iPad mini with a Retina display with a slightly higher resolution display and the superior Super AMOLED technology. Now the only drawback for me continues to be Samsung's TouchWiz UX, which has a surprising amount of lag still in this tablet. You're certainly going to see better performance on something like the iPad mini with Retina display than you will with TouchWiz, but TouchWiz of course does give you lots of features, including this fairly useful My Magazine UX with those interactive live tiles, which I actually really like. So in conclusion, you have a beautiful display, excellent stereo speakers, thin, lightweight, and price like the other high-end competition with features that stand out above all the rest. So definitely a big fan of the Tab S, but the software is definitely a continued weak point for Samsung tablets. So that's going to do for me in this video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you again in the next one.